All right, brother, we got
But that segues to the next question. Don't it?
yes, we got a question that came in. I love this. How active should a Christian be in politics with all that is going on?
Oh, wow. Wow. What a question.
Ray Brantley.
What a hot button. What a hot button question. But no, we said that there is no question that's wrong. And I think that's actually a good one.
It's relative too.
And that's
Relevant.
That's what it ought to be.
It's a relative relevant.
But all right, to what extent? Let's back it up just a little bit. Can a Christian be involved in politics at all? Forget for just a moment about what's going on today, but can we at all, Troy, be involved in politics? You know, David Lipscomb was well known for his book called The Christian and Civil Government,
Mm-hmm.
and he really took a stance that he shouldn't be involved. I would beg to differ, and say that a Christian probably needs to be involved within reason. And somebody would say, well, what Bible verse should we have? Well, one, is there a Bible verse that is forbiddance, that would be sinful? Do you know of any?
That would be sinful?
Yeah, that forbids a Christian.
The only thing would be if you start to allow the laws of the land to supersede the laws of God.
Yeah.
You know, I think of Acts whenever Peter says, was it Acts chapter 5, right?
Yep.
When Peter says that we ought to obey God, not man. So that would be the only time that you'd be forbidden to participate. But other than that, Romans 13 tells us that we are to submit to the government, but it doesn't say anything about don't have anything to do with government.
Exactly.
In fact, what are we supposed to be? According to Matthew chapter 5, we're supposed to be lights in the world.
We're supposed to be the preservative agent.
Exactly. Let your light shine before men. That's all man. And so therefore, if we're letting our light shine before men so that God be glorified, Matthew 5, is that 16?
Mm-hmm.
Then that means we're going to have an effect on people who are in government. We're going to have people affect in different ways. Now, let me answer the question this way. There are members of the Church of Christ who are strong, faithful members who are members of Congress, who are representatives and things like that, who are sheriffs, who are commissioners, and all kinds of different things. And so, so to answer the question, that's the first thing, is a Christian can be involved in politics.
He can. There is not a forbiddance. What I would say is Matthew 6:33 needs to be remembered in this verse.
Yes.
Because it's in Matthew 6:33 that says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God." Philippians chapter 3 verse 20. But our citizenship is in heaven. And we think about that. Our conversation is what the King James version says there. But my manner of living, my citizenship is in heaven. Now, 1 John 2:15-17, that we're not to love this world nor be of this world. Now, that is not a forbiddance. What that is remember your priorities. What comes first is the church and the kingdom of God. If there was a conflict, but now this applies not only to politics, but what about any job?
Yes, any job.
Anything that would be a conflict to us and our role as an individual, as a Christian, a citizen of the kingdom of God, then we wouldn't be able to do it. And if being in politics kept you from that, now we're getting into a judgment matter.
Yes.
And that's going to depend on the individual. Now, if we're going to be involved in politics, and involving in politics doesn't just mean being a politician, but it may be about voting. It could be, do we help campaign if our politician happens to be involved? You know, can we? Yes. And in fact, I hope that we do to some degree, because I'm thankful for the country I live in. And I appreciate that on many issues, moral laws exist. Not that we have to have those moral laws, but I'm grateful for them. And I would like to see us uphold that kind of thing.
Yes, and you can be involved. In fact, practice what you preach, right? And so the question was, how involved can we get? How involved can we be? Well, to the extent that I've got a whole bunch of scriptures that talk about in Ephesians chapter 4 that says that we are to do all things with lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing one another in love, speaking the truth in love, over and over and over. You're going to see this idea of love. That goes back to Matthew chapter 5, verse 16, let your light shine.
Here's the ones real quick.
Okay.
You said Ephesians 4, put away lying. So that,
Whoa.
I think about
when
politicians.
a politician, you know how to tell when a politician's lying, right?
How's that?
His lips are moving,
Yeah.
so.
Put away lying, be ye angry, sin not. This is Ephesians 4, 25, 26, verse 27. Neither give place to the devil. Don't steal. Work with that which is good, and don't let corrupt communication come from your mouth. Verse 29.
Yeah.
So, what you said.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you a real world example. I'm the preacher at Margaret Street Church of Christ, and Milton, Florida was looking at adding a statute to allow bars within a certain distance and in the downtown area. And all of our members were very much against that. And so I went down to City Hall and I stood before the city commissioners there and told them my displeasure with their decision that they were making. Here's a Christian involved in politics. I like what Adam Cox says there. You want to read that?
Oh, yeah. The best way that Christians can influence politics is the way Paul influenced Agrippa, Felix, and Festus through the preaching of the gospel. And he's very much right there in the book of Acts. Paul was grateful, and that's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
He was grateful to be imprisoned in some ways because it would put him in front of these people to be able to preach the gospel.
One of my favorite verses is in Acts chapter 26, whenever Agrippa says, what, you think in this, you're going to convert me to be a Christian? And he looks at him and he says, yes, I wish that everybody in this room, he was talking to a room of politicians, of government officials, saying, yeah, I want you to be a Christian, except for these chains that I'm wearing.
and it's interesting to think about that he was so, amenable to doing whatever it took for the cause of Christ. Jack Davis writes on here, in the U.S., the people are by definition a central part of the government. We, the people, and you're right, we are blessed. Now, one point I want to make on this is that while we as Christians can vote, we can have our, there's 2 points. One of the things I teach the students is that our philosophy should always be shaped by our theology. Theology is what shapes our philosophy. Philosophy is what shapes our religion. Theology we cannot disagree on. Doctrines of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Philosophy, sometimes we can start to have a little disagreement. In religion, in politics, we really can. Because politics is kind of that judgment area sometimes. And I encourage Christians, don't let that be the dividing line between you. If you're going to have a dividing line between Christians, make it doctrinal issues.
Yes.
1 Corinthians chapter 5. When you have sin taking place and you have got to draw the line because you cannot tolerate false teachers, you cannot tolerate sinful behaviors. The other thing I want to say on this is while it's good for us to use opportunities to speak out, let our light shine, we don't need to see the government as the way that God is going to carry out his kingdom.
That's right. God does not need any of these governments to carry out his kingdom. He can use those governments, but he doesn't need them.
Yeah, we don't, I think sometimes we think, God's will has got to be carried out through the, United States of America, or God's will has got to be carried out through wherever. That's actually a problem. We were talking about this on the show before we started the show, and that's why we almost were late, is that we were discussing this idea that, the Roman government actually viewed themselves as carrying out their gods, not the true God. I want to qualify that, but they saw themselves as carrying out the God's will on earth to bring law and order. And they would actually act as if it was going to be an eternal kingdom because they were doing what God's will was. The comparison that some people make that to the United States of America is almost uncanny.
I know, it's scary. It's scary. But as Paul says in Philippians 3, our citizenship is in heaven. And so that's what we need to be mainly focused on is how are we behaving? How are we conducting ourselves in the kingdom of heaven?
So great question.
Mm-hmm.
To what extent, as long as it's not causing division of the church and being unchristian, we can do so. Ray, you got something?
I did, if you let me speak there. I completely agree with everything you guys said. The only thing that popped into my mind that you guys haven't brought up yet is, and it's more of a principle thing, is the counting the cost. We do that with our discipleship and everything in life. And politics is one of those fields that we have to understand, just like many jobs out there, that is going to add extra difficulties to your life as a Christian. So you need to know that going in. Make sure that you understand it's going to make things difficult. To be an honest politician is something that's going to make your life very hard in climbing the ladder of politics. So just understand that and be ready for things that come against you, because it's not going to be a simple road.
That's right. That's right. You know, I threw it at you at the beginning of the question, and so I'm glad you finally spoke up there, brother. Always has good thoughts.